Dr. Benhamou, chairman of IVN, has been active globally for more than 32 years in investments and promotion of innovating high-tech firms. On his resume, you can trace his executive and leadership roles in companies and organizations like Cypress Semiconductor, Silicon Valley Bankshares, Israel Cleantech Ventures, the Institute for the Future. Earlier, some notable names like PAN, 3Com, Bridge Communication. At some point, Mr. Benhamou was appointed to the U.S.-Israel Science and Technology Commission by the U.S. Commerce Secretary. Graduate of Stanford University School of Engineering and a doctorate from Art des Métiers Paris Tech. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Eric is widely and broadly involved in academia. He's vice chairman of Ben Gurion University in the Negev and serves on the board of Stanford University School of Engineering. He was an adjunct professor of entrepreneurship and family enterprise at INSEAD and is a visiting professor at IDC Herzliya Harrison School of Business. But this morning, I call upon Mr. Eric Benhamou, founder and chairman of Israel Venture Network, a venture philanthropy organization, to open this conference with his remarks. Eric, please.
Thank you, Giyat. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 12th annual conference of IVN held in Israel. Time passes fast. 12 years ago, we would not have been able to fill an auditorium like this, but today we do. I realize that not all of you are IVN active members, but all of you somehow are friends or partners of IVN. And we share many things in common. We share the belief that Israeli society, while extremely resilient, is still torn through social inequalities and increasing alarming income gaps and social fractures. And we also share the belief that government action alone is not going to be sufficient to address these growing problems. Private sector actions alone, neither. And private philanthropy is also somehow helpless in addressing these problems on a long-term basis. We share the belief that together, these three forces, if they have concerted actions, will be able to make a dent in some of these growing problems. And IVN is playing a catalyst role in this collaboration. We certainly believe that venture philanthropy is a concept which is essential to resolving some of the problems that we face. So this morning, I want to talk to you some more about Tandem, the social venture fund that we started last year at the very same event. And I want to give you some year one lessons of what happened, what we learned, the challenges ahead. And after that, leave room to two wonderful keynote speakers who will take this podium and share different perspectives on the same general topics as I did. I'll mention briefly that Dr. Pamela Harrington, who heads the Social Entrepreneurship Center at Oxford University, the Jeff Skoll Social Entrepreneurship Center, is a deep domain expert on these subjects, and she has the benefit over us to not just understand social entrepreneurships in a local context, but in a global context, and we look forward to her remarks. We're also privileged to have with us Jennifer Gorwitz, who is right here in front, and who is a wonderful leader and partner of IVN. She showed extraordinary leadership in partnering with us on our social venture program with the Federation of San Francisco, which she chairs. And she'll be able to give you practical, personal, experiential feedback on what it's like to partner with IVN and to sponsor social ventures. So we're very grateful that Jennifer, you're here, as well as Dr. Pamela Harrington. Tandem started a year ago. We launched it in front of a group much like this one. And when we did, we explained our basic investment thesis. We believe that the growing social income gaps that exist in this society can be addressed, partially at least, through the empowerment of social enterprises. Social enterprises who pursue a social mission, but who pursue this in a way that is far more sustainable than the ones that have been done before. In particular, social enterprises have a product or a service to sell, to bring to the marketplace from which they can derive revenues, and through these revenues can at least partially make them more sustainable, and certainly much less dependent upon government largesse or public philanthropy. Social enterprises are new concepts around the world, but certainly they are in Israel. We've experimented with this concept for many years now, and we believe that Israeli society is ripe enough to warrant having a dedicated fund that is focused on the empowerment of these social enterprises. We believe that social ventures exist in Israel, oftentimes too small to really make a dent, but they can be empowered to grow bigger and far more sustainable. Tandem was based, the Tandem investment thesis was based on the belief that we can direct a combination of financial capital and know-how and select carefully a group of deserving social ventures and bring them up to self-sustainability over a period of a few years. This is the belief on which Tandem was founded and funded. And today it is one of the very few such funds in existence in Israel. We're very much at the pioneering border of this kind of social innovation. I'm proud to tell you that what we announced last year has come into fruition, has come into existence. The fund that we launched a year ago was activated just a few weeks ago. We were able to raise close to $1.5 million to be deployed across the portfolio of social ventures. And what was encouraging to all of us is that these capital commitments that we collected came from both the US and Israel. They came from individuals and corporations. So today we have 20-odd balanced set of LPs who are behind the Tandem Fund, and Tandem has started to operate. We put in place an investment committee, expertly chaired by Itik Danziger, who is one of our board members, and we've already started to make investments. In fact, we've made 6 investments so far, which brings the grand total social ventures that we sponsor to about 20. 20 is a good portfolio. It's large enough that we can start to track its progress. And it's very encouraging to us that over the last 2 years, the collective portfolio has grown much faster than national GDP and is now touching approximately 27,000 beneficiaries around the state of Israel, whether they're individuals or corporations. We measure the vector of progress year on year. It's still too early to declare victory, but the first year has been extremely encouraging. So Tandem focuses half of the ventures that we've reviewed over the past year fall in this category. And within this category, more than half focus on the economic development of the most disenfranchised populations in Israel. Our team has been very hard at work reviewing and carefully selecting the most promising of these social ventures. In fact, in average, we pretty much review one social venture per day, so close to about 200 for the entire year. And it is really this kind of hard selection that is a key ingredient of success. Only the very best deserve our full undivided attention and financial capital and support, and only the very best can reach the threshold of sustainability and measurable long-term social impact. So this is my report on Tandem. Year 1 has been very encouraging. But it's not enough to just give you statistics and factoids of information. I want to also share with you a few of the key lessons that we learned along the way. The first one is that social ventures do exist in Israel, but by and large, they're very small. They're very much under critical mass. They don't really have the impact that they're purported to have. They are far, far below the threshold by which they could be deemed as sustainable. Not only are they small in size, but they lack a combination of business acumen and business know-how to be able to grow the commercial activity to a level that could be considered self-sustaining. So there's very much a rediscovery of the important concept of mentorship. Without mentorship, these business skills cannot be transferred, and the know-how cannot be transferred to these management teams. These social ventures that we review and that we select are very small, and not surprisingly, they don't have any banking credits. They don't have access to financial capital. They're too small to be considered by banks. They don't have a rich enough cash flow to be even close to the criteria. And we shouldn't be surprised by this. Over the last few years, the entire world has been precipitated into a financial crisis that has caused banks to become very conservative. And governments the world over have asked banks to be even more conservative, to be more regulated. So we shouldn't be surprised that banks are not lending financial capital to social enterprises. We shouldn't be surprised that venture capitalists don't lend money to these enterprises either. They only know how to make money on technology companies and life science companies, and even then, some of the time only. So we have a big capital formation problem for social enterprises. 10 of them exist in part to address some of it. It's not going to be sufficient. There will be down payments, and it will be directed at the best ones, which hopefully will set an example of what can be possible. What we discovered along the way, surprise, surprise, is that social ventures prefer to receive grants rather than loans. Somehow I figured this out when my two sons were in university. They preferred to apply for scholarships than student loans. Yet, if you run the university, you would have a different perspective. You only have so much capital. If you can deploy it as student loans, you'd actually do better, more good than if you just give it away in scholarships. Because at least when the money of the loan gets repaid, you can redeploy it towards the next generation of students. But you have another benefit that's a little more subtle. A young adult who is taught how to repay a loan and not honor his or her debts learns a precious lesson about being a member of society and being accountable. These two lessons, which I describe in the context of a student applying for financial resource at university, are very much the same concepts that we apply to social enterprises who want access to more financial resources. So we want these social enterprises to learn what it's like to be a real business. And a real business borrows responsibly, repays its debts, and builds credits. And as it builds credits, it can deploy more capital and get to critical mass. So we've learned all that in year one. We've also learned that it's very hard to measure the social impact of these businesses. Oh, we try. We have a social return on investment criteria for any social venture that we back. But I have to tell you, it's very hard to do. It's very hard to make it consistent, crisp, repeatable, comparable. But we're hard at work at this. In fact, we discussed it yesterday at that board meeting, and we're forming a special committee of the board and management to help improve what we already have. Finally, we learned that it's very important to continue to work with all the other stakeholders, all the other parties in the discussion, including the government. The government is a very important, and I have to say, very engaged party in this discussion. We need their help, we need their sponsorship. We understand that governments work at government speed. We understand that governments are not entities that can be leading edge. Nevertheless, they're a very important party to the discussion. We want them to help us improve the recognized status of social ventures. And we want them to clarify what a social venture is and what it's not. And we want them to continue to help catalyze the movements behind social ventures and social venture funds.
We do expect that the tender will be out in the early part of next year, and we expect to be amongst a small number of respondents to this tender. And we expect that with these events unfolding, the social venture movements will finally take a hold in this country. In short, it has been a monumental year for us to be able to launch a social venture fund, deploy it, activate it, start to make investments, and start to see encouraging signs of progress. None of this would have been possible without your support, without your help. I'm very grateful for this. I do want to, in particular, single out the IVN professional team under the leadership of Michal Simler, our Executive Director, who are working tirelessly day in and day out to coach these social ventures, to select them, to bring them support, to connect them with sources of capital, and to help them be more successful. I'm very grateful that you chose to spend half a day of the time with us, and I hope that the rest of the morning is educational to all of you, in particular with the contribution of our next two speakers. Thank you.